your dreams trying to tell you something? Author M.B. Mosley teaches you how to decode your dreams and take hold of the manifestations that lay in wait for you in the waking realm. Now, broadcasting all over the world, it's the Dream Interpretation Podcast.
Hello there, Dream Zone Interpretation Tribe. You are now tuning into the Spiritual Sweet Spot Saturdays. Say that fast. I dare you, dare you, dare you. All right, guys, I'm so excited to introduce this session. It was impressed upon my heart because I felt that we are dealing with all things spiritual dream realm. So why not add little days like this? I don't know why the days have to be little, but why not add days like Saturday just to kind of get that refresher that will touch the center of our spirit. And I'm also excited to lead these sessions on Saturdays from a manuscript that I have had forever. You heard right, a manuscript. That's how much I love you guys.
Hello, and welcome back, family. Yes. You are tuned into the right podcast, right time. This is the Dream Zone Interpretation Podcast. However, you're joining us on a Saturday where we are discussing everything soul and everything spiritual and soul related. So welcome to our Saturday Spiritual Sweet Spot. I am your host, author, and sister friend, M.B. Mosley, also known as Memory Bengessa Mosley. And I hope that this podcast finds you and your family doing well. Welcome. Come on in. We are having a great, awesome discussion today. It is imperative that this is downloaded and or listened to in this day and age. And I really wanted to tap into this as well because I wanted to tap into this. This was a must-have conversation. However, we are doing things in a sequence so that we can best understand our journey to true self. Today's topic is living in the space of uncertainty. Living in the space of uncertainty. What makes life certain is when sometimes we have the ability to control the elements surrounding our lives, our routines and or dispositions in life that govern our certainty. But what happens when that is taken away abruptly? What happens when we are untethered from our mundane jobs/careers and or life routines? What happens then to our souls when we are plopped in the realm of uncertainty, the space called the unknowing space of life? This is a very familiar story for myself. After 20 years of only understanding, we say 20 years, but let's start at kindergarten. Why don't we? So after a lifetime and 20 years of understanding what a schedule is, work is, being on time for work and being committed to work, and then abruptly that's being cut and untethered from my life was about the most, at that time, devastating moment of my life. Here I was after 20 years of reporting to an institute and understanding how to report to an institute that provided my bank account with my with their small gratitude of appreciation every 2 weeks with a paycheck. And so now I was facing, after 20 years of such discipline, routine, and having had also built my personal life routine around it, it's 20 years when I start at the age 16, but let's say the latter part was when I held the 15-year career, and that's all that I knew, and I built my life around that. I built my gym lifestyle around that. Everything was built around what we consider the career or the job. Of course, the career or the job came first at that time in my life. And so what happened then when that was untethered from my day-to-day flow? It was an awkward moment in life because I knew I had no concept of anything else, but that was the only thing that up until that time that I felt for myself that defined me, that defined my worth. That I this is real talk. So I felt like I was really lost. It was a moment of, I had 6 months of darkness within my soul because I didn't know, I had never felt how it feels not to be able to get up and have somewhere to go or have a calendar full of things you needed to do for someone, whereby you are held accountable and responsible, and then where you accept and anticipate the reward every 2 weeks. There I was for the first time in my life in 20 years, idle, still as a mountain, and just torn to the core because I didn't know which way to go. I had not seen this derailment coming, but it came. I had seen a different destiny for myself at that time because I was planning some things as the control freak I used to be, where I was trying to layer out how I would phase myself out of the the secular work industry, and I felt like I was gonna ease myself out slowly but gradually over some time, and not necessarily in just stopping in one time. And yes, I am talking about the day that I quit, 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 threw my hands in the air and walked away from that 15-year career. The only thing that probably at the time that I thought mattered to me, well, before I met my husband, of course, and the only thing that I thought was me. Yeah, I used to write books around that, but it was leisure writing. It was writing in between, but that career occupied my mind, my space, my physical, my being every 24/7, though it wasn't every 7 days, but in my mind, everything I had to do was targeted around that, my commitment, my calendar, my routine. And so now there I was, and it was done. Dizzity, done. Complete, es todo, done, complete, goodbye, quit. What was I to do? Yes, it was my choice to quit. I chose that path for myself. I had about enough, I said, and I made a decision. Yes, it hadn't been 100% thoroughly thought out. I had a plan. However, let's say the plan was implemented earlier than what was anticipated due to the circumstances of the nature at that time. And so I'm not sitting here advocating that people quit their jobs, because everyone's story is different. And that is definitely, if you had asked me at the start of that year, what are your plans this year? My calendar did not have the word quit your career in there, quit your job in there. It was nowhere around, but circumstances arose that put the situation and myself in a situation to make a decision, one that I wasn't ready for. However, I digress. So there I was, living in the realm of uncertainty. The things and circumstances that had taken place up until the point up until the point for me resigning. Let's say the nice word for it, up until the time that I resigned there, I was on vacation, and mulled around the idea, due to the circumstances that had arose. And one day maybe we could go into it. And I think I may have spoken about a few of the circumstances of lack of integrity from top leadership and so forth. But other than that, I digress. One thing I'm not going to do is ever sell my morals and my values for a dollar amount. So anyway, so that happened. Que sera, sera. That happened. I sat there in oblivion. I mean, I know I made the decision. I will not say I did not, because people are like, so why you quit anyways, but understand, if you're a person that's dictated in life based on your morals and your values, and somebody, let's say at your career, says, let's steal this, would you steal it and go with the plan? I don't think so. And I'm not saying that's what happened in my situation, but I'm just giving you an analogy of integrity and how severe some of these things and things that may be asked of us in these types of places that may, because sometimes you're going to work or be around people with no integrity, and no integrity equals no morals or no values. Some people are fine with that. Some people are fine in atmospheres where they embezzle funds and do all kinds of things, but not on my watch. Not as long as I may stand to be a witness or get subpoenaed, or major things may happen. And especially if, for myself, I had signed myself up as a clinician first before leadership was a thing for me within this career. So therefore, my due diligence is to the patients, and I'm not going to ever break that conduct, doing things that go against the patient code. Now, understand, my discussion here right now is not to justify quitting and/or resigning. However, once again, there was a a exit plan that I had planned for myself, which was still 5 years short from the time that I did this. However, let's say the plan was implemented immediately. But now there I was. Perhaps for some of you all, it is not the fact that you quit or resign. Perhaps for some of you, you get laid off. Perhaps for some of you, your hours get shut. Perhaps for some of you, get fired. Perhaps for some of you, you decide to change path or course, or sometimes it's transitions and things that happen in life and circumstances that push you out of your mundane routine and or just hijacks your everyday today flow. So perhaps it's that thing that you were used to doing and now you're in the middle smack dab, just like me, looking around the walls in a space. For the first time in my life, I felt so defeated by life in that 6 month of darkness of my soul. And as I looked at the walls, I barely, because I didn't have a timer to wake up to, so I barely woke up. I spent most time sleeping, barely thinking, and just wondering, how do people move on? How does life start? It just felt like I had no starting point. And so I had to dig deep in my soul, but I had to allow myself that time to at least grieve the loss of routines and time schedules and job careers, happening positions. It wasn't easy hushing the ego. I wasn't a person that walked around the planet with the career ego. Certainly you wouldn't know what I would have done if you ever saw my Facebook post years ago, because I never talked about the career that was separated from the social aspect of it. But low key inside my heart, I was a little bit proud of what I did. And so now here it was, I didn't have that. I didn't have people to be responsible over. I didn't have a responsibility or the thing that I thought defined me was gone. Looking at the walls, looking at the ceilings, I struggled. I struggled thinking about why it just felt like an end. It was a horrible end to a tenure of what I would like to say excellence. And so, excellence, when I work. I put my mind to it. I have an unmatched work ethic. However, I digress. Who's tooting their own horn? Toot toot. But so here it was, right? And it's like, how do you pick up those pieces? Perhaps it's not even career related. Perhaps it's transitions in the life. So for some, it may be a divorce after so many years, and your partner is who you know. Perhaps it's a separation. Perhaps it's something abrupt that has torn a strong relationship apart. How does one go on? And it's not about picking up the pieces to your old life or picking up the pieces to your life, but how does one go on? Literally in that moment of darkness, I mulled around with ideas, not knowing if I even wanted to go outside. I spent most of those months indoors because I just didn't even know which way to go. Which way as those 6 dark months started to come to an end, I started to seek a process to help me in this space of uncertainty. You're talking to a person who was used to the control of life and the predictability and the routines of life. Yet here I was without one. And so I started to mull around in my head trying to find information and trying to figure out how it is that I can revive myself and my life at that moment. And this is what I found. As a being, I found it important to utilize be. Get it? As a being, B-E-I-N-G, I found it important to utilize the be, which is B-E in being, to help me navigate this time and space in my life, and understood that the universe was trying to relate to me. You see, our soul's being is not determined by our superficial external being. So the soul is not governed by circumstances. Rather, the circumstances of life are teaching the soul how to maneuver through this journey, meaning our careers, our accolades, our societal concepts of who we are externally is not directly related to who we are becoming and or internally. After I put aside the ego, which was my superficial me, the false me. Because the superficial/false me was identified and defined by what she did, what she had accomplished, who she was within the corporate rung of the ladder, and what drove that ambition, and so forth and so on. After I put aside the ego, the superficial me, the false me, and took the mental of discovery to my true self, by exercising the points, remember, in the last podcast, such as investigating who I am internally. So this is the sequence we're working with, because if you recall, the podcast before this one is we were discovering who am I, who is self. And until we determine first and foremost who we are, who we really are, and what determines our self in this journey to true self, then only are we tapping into our internal soul's connection. I understood then, after exercising the points from the last podcast, discovering who I was internally, that my soul, my divine being that dwells in me, I then understood that the external self had to die. The external self was the superficial false self that wore and bore the pride and the ego and the things that society had said had to drive on the surface when you look at the pictures, right? But when you dig deep, remember why somebody once said, pictures tell 1,000 words. Pictures tell 1,000 words. And now I understood much more than trying to compete with life's societal pressures. I digress. After understanding that the external, superficial, false self had to die a very hard and painful death, I understood before I could even exercise my full powers of true self in those 6 months, I had to do a couple of things. One of the things that we as conscious people have to understand that things happen for a reason. There is no coincidences. And once we wrap ourselves around that, take a sit and start to observe. These are some of the things that helped me during this path of uncertainty, living in the unknowing space. I decided that there would be 3 B's, that is BE, that will define and help me and mold me through this spiritual journey that I had started to seek and grow. So the first that helped me to the journey of true self, as I was killing and or trying to kill off the external self, the false self, the superficial self, trying to choke out that ego from me as it was slowly but surely dying, I decided that number 1, the ancient book of wisdom says, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. The reason also being that once you connect your soul to your spiritual sweet spot, you understand that be he transformed by the renewal of your mind. In spirituality, it is an opening of the mind, functioning in a different manner. Be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. Renewing your mind, meaning being of a different mind than the mind that you functioned of. One, being open-minded and understanding. And what comes from an open-minded mind is a million more possibilities than one that will come from a closed mind and or a mind that doesn't grow from its circumstances. So understanding that everything we are is in us. Everything we need is in us. We have to go and fetch it in that pathway between the conscious and subconscious mind. In a nutshell, be open-minded to the realm of infinite possibilities. An open mind, a renewed mind, a growing mind is one that definitely is open for infinite possibilities. If you're like me, don't waste your time moaning and groping on wondering what's next for you in this realm of uncertainty and what you're going to do, and wallowing in that self-pity of woe is me and I don't even know where to pick up the pieces to my life. Understand that be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be open-minded, because this is a space where infinite possibilities occur. Now let's talk about number 2, BE. Be still. Once again, from the ancient book of wisdom, for in spirituality, stillness is meditation, is going into your subconscious mind, triggering your subconscious mind, connecting. The sweetest spot is the connection of the conscious and subconscious minds being fully coherent to each other. Be still. Strengthen the mind by quieting the noise. Dig deep and connect internally. I realized this was a time where I had lived most of my life as a busy bee, with the air quotes, and with the mundane of life's pulling towards everything else but myself. But now in my time, I had the power to control my sphere, my environment. And this was a time for shutting out everything falsetta. No, just kidding. I just wanted to say that. Shutting out everything that wasn't there to help me through this journey or was noise. So that meant social media for me. And that meant everything else that was, not inspiring, but sitting in pure and utter stillness. This was the first time. They say a blessing in disguise. This was it. This was it. Number 3, be aware. Be aware, right? Awareness, to be aware is to be conscious, and to be conscious is to be aware. Be alert to the signals of the universe. Understand the power of free will and choice, for that is what helps us navigate this spiritual journey. We are the ones that choose out of our own free will. So therefore, choose how you want to live in the space of uncertainty. Are you going to wallow in self-pity or pursue your life's full potential through this time? I understand as I started to morph and crave and desire a different realm of myself, because here I was stuck with the walls and the roof, staring around and wondering what was going on in this realm of uncertainty, when I started to understand the concept of renewing my mind, keeping my mind open. The infinite possibilities came about when you cast your desires and your manifestations to the universe. The universe is always saying yes. And there it was. I was slowly but becoming a little itty bitty business person, a little itty bitty business woman with the possibilities and contracts that were opening up for me. Because here it was, because my mind, my train process was used to what I was tethered to. We understand that, the whole, you go to school, you do this, you do that, you get a job, you get a good job, and so now here it was. And now I'm exploring for the first time in my life a realm that I didn't think about. I mean, not within that instant moment. And the universe said yes. Yes, it said to take care of me through the hustle of possibilities of being my own contractor, in actually propositioning my skills for my own benefit to helping other people. And the interesting part is, it was also a journey to know that there's no money every 2 weeks if you don't hustle. But hey, I was learning, being open-minded to that. And so the power of the stillness helped me think clearly, helped me come out slowly out of the dark spot, helped me understand that if I never ever have to be in leadership, or if I never ever have to hold another radiology probe for diagnostic purposes, then I will be absolutely fine with the abundance that the universe has granted to me. For my life shall change and will change, and it doesn't remain stagnant. So I had to come to that conclusion, though I had never thought I would ever. But I had to tell myself that I will be okay if I never ever have to be in the field that I used to be in. And the be aware, alert, be aware, for to be aware is to be conscious, and to be conscious is to be aware. I had to then sit back within that stillness. And finally, after I stopped fighting in those 6 months and being in this dark bubble, I had to ask myself, what is the meaning of this time in my life? Because sometimes we're so thrust into something so unfamiliar, and it's so uncertain, it's uncomfortable. It is. I mean, who wants to be, if you're a routine person, little control freak here that you were ex-reformed control freak that who wants to be thrust in the realm of unpredictability and all this other stuff. It was an uncomfortable time. But now here at this point in time, I had to look around internally, dig deep, and ask the universe, and not ask the universe, but dig deep and open my eyes, my spiritual eyes, and see what the signals the universe was trying to throw my way. And it was so interesting because it's like I had a big old epiphany. After I came out of it, I used to tell myself this because within the career itself, it was demanding, travel and so forth. Every 2 weeks, it was about between 145 to 150 something hours of travel plus work and all this other stuff. And miraculously, sometime in between then, I managed to write a few books that I published. But other than that, I used to be like, oh my gosh, I used to like literally daydream of moments where I won't have responsibilities because the job itself was stressful. And so I used to just sit there and daydream off a day that I wouldn't have any responsibilities, that I wouldn't have any responsibilities on anyone, that I didn't have to do anything but really be concerned about myself and my writing. I used to daydream of the days that I would spend days just writing, just waking up and writing. I used to daydream of those moments when I was out on the road and trying to write and trying to, lead a whole team and trying to be involved in the clinical as well as just the corporate aspect of it all. It was all demanding and stressful, but at that time I just was daydreaming. I used to daydream of having days to myself that where I could just free flow, write and mold myself into my author brand. And then here it is, started laughing at that moment because it was 6 months of darkness because I was untethered abruptly. And now here it was. I'm like, OMG, like the universe is sending me the biggest signal of all. I now have control of my 24 hours. I do and go where I need to, as the independent contractor. However, it'll be for 3-4 hours and we sleep about 6 or so or 7. And now you have all this time. I had all this time, which is a beautiful thing because then I started to really hold on to that, gravitate to that and start I call it my catalog. But I started to build my writing catalog because my writing is getting stronger and stronger by the day. So here it is now. The universe has afforded me this opportunity, this break where I come into my own true self. And not only that, but I am writing in the genres that I always wanted to write in. I'm writing the books. I'm creating my catalog while I enjoy this journey. And then there's no pressure. It's like I don't have to like write a few chapters and then be away for so many months because just work and everything and come back and try to piece it again. It's just like so free falling. The biggest challenge was creating a schedule routine around my writing. And that was, I was like, nah, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do free fall. Just wake up, do what we got to do right when we want to. But as long as we put in hours and time, because now my mind is rested. I'm not getting texted or called at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning about something relating to the job or people coming to work or quitting or so forth. So that's no longer a thing. I don't have that stress. I don't have those demands. So now here is the final thing I want to leave you all with in these circumstances where we will find abruptly untethered and or life just disturbed abruptly and so forth. Take a look around at you. Turn every single thing that you may think is a negative into the positive. Look around the universe and ask yourself, why is this moment in time occurring now? Not why is it happening to me, but why is this moment in time right now occurring to me? Take a 360 look around yourself and ask yourself, what can I do in this moment for myself? What can I learn for myself in this moment. It was really mind blowing for me, because here it was, and I just couldn't believe this, because after I spent those 6 months, and I was, some 6 months, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is the moment you wanted. This is it. This is what you wanted the whole entire time. You just wanted to wake up and write and do what you wanted to do. Wake up and write. So absolutely, I gravitated onto that. And listen, the beautiful thing about our nature is that we are able to, in every situation, we're able to be resilient. Whether you feel like you're being resilient or not, we're able to be resilient. We thrive off of that. When we're tossed in certain circumstances or situations like ours, they may be uncomfortable, unfamiliar. We may not like them, and sometimes we might grab a little bit, but at the end of it all, take a hold of this opportunity and understand just by observing around you. And sometimes the universe has a way of telling us to slow down or just take a look around, and maybe it's time to make a detour and maybe make that right turn at the fork. Maybe it's time. Pay attention to the signals of the universe, for nothing just happens out the blue. There are no coincidences, right? So understand that in this journey, in this path, in this realm of uncertainty, it is totally normal to feel very bewildered, to feel lost, to feel disconnected, sometimes even to feel dark and bleak like I was. But pull yourself out by the bootstraps slowly but surely. Allow yourself time to come out of that feeling and start to search the signals of the universe. Exercise being still, meditating and cutting the noise around you, and digging deep and connecting internally. It's a beautiful thing, understanding who you are on the inside, because everything else superficially about the world and the societal concept ceases to exist, because you will understand the most important part, especially what I love about this process for myself, is knowing that no matter what else I do from this point on in life, that thing doesn't define me. Right? Because I'm connecting to my true self, my inner self, not the superficial self, not the ego, but what defines me is my true self. So if anything at all, it brings upon an infinite happiness, a warmth to my heart and into the soul, knowing that I am who I am. Right? And that nothing else superficially defines me. So if I decide to start building clay pots today, I am who I am. I know who I am in my true self. It's not about the societal impressions of who I am. Right? All right. So at the end of the day, family, I learned that I had to look around me and choose to make some decisions. Was it easy? No. Was it hard? No. However, I understood that it was imperative for me to dwell in my soul's being, to really understand the rest, and to understand that man's concept of who I am is not my destiny, and that I have the power to make do with this beautiful space of uncertainty. I learned to surrender to the universe and let the natural order of the universe take place, which was a display of ultimate trust, and the universe reciprocated, thus manifesting this current life. I love you guys that much. Take a hold of where you are. Look at all the positives and understand that life is happening in a beautiful way for us. Life is happening right now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but today. Seize the moment to enjoy each day while en route to your intended destiny. A quote by Memory Ben Gessemer. If no one has told you this today, I love you. I appreciate you. And yes, we can do this thing called